Welcome to She Loves the Grid, where we discuss all things F1, whether it's happening on the track, in the paddock, or beyond the grid. We'll talk about it all.
I can't believe we're already at our first episode. It's happening. So excited. And it couldn't be a better time because it's race week. Round 1 is this Sunday. So it's a perfect time to kick off our new podcast. She Loves the Grid.
She Loves the Grid. Absolutely. Did you finish watching all the episodes?
No. I still have 2 more episodes to go. Trying to decide if I should wait and watch them with my boyfriend or not. And I'm kind of leaning towards not because I don't want to wait.
I binge watched all mine alone. My partner, he's gonna have to catch up on his own.
There you go.
We should introduce ourselves.
What's that?
We should introduce ourselves.
Yes, let's do it. So I'm Dianne, and I have been an F1 fan for 4 years now. Absolutely obsessed. This is my 4th season. Yeah. So I'm just obsessed with F1, 100%. I live in the United States, and go ahead, introduce yourself.
And I'm Claire, and a recent transplant from the U.S. into Berlin, Germany, and have heard of F1. Never thought I would get into it because I just didn't like, other kinds of racing. But once my bestie asked me to check it out, and then I watched all the first 4 seasons of Drive to Survive. Now I can't get rid of it, so I can't let it go. I'm looking forward to your trip in a few months to go see it live.
I can't wait. I know. Last year was my first race in Austin. Quite the experience. We sat on the turn 1 hill, so general mission, all grass. And if you even see the video on Drive to Survive, thousands of our best friends on that hill. Everybody just packed in, but it was a great experience, except for my driver getting out in the first turn. But this year we're looking forward to Barcelona. Can't wait to experience it in Europe.
That's going to be so much fun. It's so much fun. So we should tell everyone, since it's our first one, about us and how we met and why we're doing this, and then get into actually F1.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, you share, because when we share our story, I think you do the best version. So you go.
Okay. So it's interesting, since I just transplanted to Germany. I had just transplanted to Arizona and was desperate to meet people, and was walking out of the grocery store, I believe, with my then 8-month or so old son on my hip, and saw you walking in with your son on your hip and just beelined across the parking lot to you.
Yes, you did.
So we have to meet. While you were telling your partner at the time, "Oh, walk away, walk away, walk away." But yeah, you were kind of forced to give your number to me, and here we are, 20-something years later. We don't want to admit it's been that long. Well, we do for our friendship, but not because of age.
Right.
Because
exactly.
My friend just turned 27 almost 2 weeks ago. And
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yours is coming up soon.
Yeah, in April. And I think that was the funniest thing, is I think for people listening, you are definitely the more outgoing one. I'm kind of more introverted, and especially when it comes to, I think, meeting people, like I will do that at a slow pace. And so when you came across the parking lot, I was just kind of like, who is this person? I probably watched too much or listened to too much crime shows. Like, I don't know who you are. Are you trying to steal my baby? I don't know you. Like, I'm not going to give you my number. But yeah, at the time, I just was like, okay, nice to see you. Like, your baby's so cute, because he really was adorable. But yeah, my partner at the time, oh, here's her phone number. And then you actually followed up. I probably was a little hesitant, but yeah, we just kept moving forward, and it's been great. The best friendship ever.
It's amazing. It to be so different too, because I'm a complete nerd, and you've done beauty pageants and stuff, and now we've done so much together over the years, and Yeah, it's been awesome. And I love you, bestie. So this is, you know, we have this hobby together, even though we're like an ocean apart, but
Yeah.
it's all going to be so much fun.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I mean, we've worked together before, but I think this is just another thing that we can bond over, more experiences. Like we said, we have our race in Barcelona in June, and
Mhm.
just another experience to add to our list of experiences together. So I'm
Well,
excited for this journey.
yeah, and to your point, like you say, talk about being more introverted, and I'm definitely not. This is, I think, a cool thing just to show how different people of different likes and whatnot come together under one thing that you like a lot, right? F1.
Exactly.
And you have more experience in it, and I'm at less, but I'm learning, and we all can learn together and share it. And for what we are, kind of into our why, we're here for She Loves the Grid for uh, female and femme person to love F1, right? That's what
Yep.
we're all here about.
Absolutely. And you and I have talked about this, but there is such growth for women and, even young women into this sport. And maybe it's Drive to Survive, maybe, it's just more people learning about it. But what I was noticing is in so many of the fan groups, it's it's just men, and there's so many times they were putting women down, and you only like it because of the drivers, and I don't think they realize how into the sport women are. The strategy, yes, the drivers, like their skill, all of it is what we're into, and we don't need to be, by some people, not all people, but some people, like talked down to because we're women, and we wanted a safe place where women who are new to the sport, who have been involved in the sport, where we can all learn from each other, right? I don't know everything. I'm still learning. You're a little bit newer. There's hopefully people that will join this awesome community that we're hoping to create, that have been fans even longer than us, and we can all learn from each other, and we don't have to deal with all of the, you're a Lewis fan, you're a Max fan. We are going to support all of the drivers, all of the teams. Um, we might have our opinions, but we're not just going to be negative and call names, like we're seeing on other pages. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about supporting the sport. Yeah, absolutely. Like I was telling you the other day, like I like a movie genre. I like the whole movie genre. Maybe one's bad, maybe one's good. It doesn't matter. I love the genre. I love the series. So same
yeah,
here. I love the sport. I'm in love with it. Yes, I've got my favorites. Yes, I have my least favorites, but it doesn't matter. It's still the sport, and it's exciting. And
yeah,
oh, you said the strategy. The strategy, that's just, it's fascinating. I love looking up the stats and the numbers, and just to think about how fast the cars go, and the different races and the conditions, and how the rules change, and they
yeah.
build the car each year. It's just, it's fascinating. And
It's
until you get into it, you don't realize the complexity.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity. And I remember years ago, before I really was into F1, I think Lewis Hamilton had won some global like sportsman of the year award. And I was like, he's driving a car. Like how hard is that? But oh my goodness, once you start to realize what these drivers go through for their training, how just grueling it is being in that car for 2 hours and driving at those speeds, and the G's that they're pulling and everything else, they are phenomenal athletes. So, I mean, I continue to learn, but yeah, I'm just so excited that we can support this sport, and all of the teams in every week when we start talking about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So, did you have a chance to watch any of the preseason testing that happened last week?
I haven't watched too much of it. Little bits here and there. Been reading some news, watching all the posts that we've been doing, courtesy
Yep.
a la Diane, and teaching us things. So I'm going to have to lend to you on most of this part of it. There's been some exciting news that's come out even over the last couple of days coming out of testing. The one thing I did read about and have been paying attention to, we recently talked about, is how the spending cap is already starting to level out the playing field. It was kind of projected that it might take years for that to happen, but they're already seeing in testing that some of the teams that were lower in the pack are already starting to show promise this year, that's exciting for me because I would
I
love to
think
see Williams and others to show even higher than they've been and get more points.
absolutely. I think, their goal and what I hope to see, is, especially starting this year, is some of those teams that have consistently been towards the bottom, like you said, William, Haas, um, even Alfa Romeo. I would love to see more battling in that kind of middle of the pack, right? We're already seeing that Red Bull and Ferrari with the testing are both looking great. They're going to be strong. It's going to, I hope it's not a runaway for Red Bull again this year, like it ended up being last year. They started off slow with some issues, but then it was just pure domination after that.
Yeah.
And through testing, they looked very, very solid, super strong. They don't, watching their body language getting out of the cars, especially Max, they seem so comfortable with what's happening with that car. Like, this is performing exactly how we want it to. So they're either masters of, like, people with the best poker faces, or they are so comfortable with this car. And I think even Checo said this, they're at a better place this time this year than they were last year. So to me, that's dangerous. Like, they're probably planning to dominate. Ferrari, I think it's been they've been quiet, but they've been steady and they've been up at the top. So I think there we have that.
Last year.
What's that?
That's such a good year last year.
Ferrari?
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of strategy issues there last year. It could have been so much better, but
the car was really good.
Yeah, they did. It was actually pretty good. So I was very excited in testing to see Aston Martin. So we know that Lawrence Stroll, I tend to call him Papa Stroll, he like has been saying for a couple of years, their goal is to be in those top, 4 teams. And looking at how Fernando was driving, Lance is out with his hurt hand, so they've got Felipe in their testing. So I think it might be a little bit harder to gauge how he's doing, but they were really showing up during practice, and it could be really, really interesting to see how that plays out. But even Haas, Nico was pulling some, great laps. I hate to talk about times because it's not about the times in testing, but they were showing fairly strong. Even, Kevin was doing a little, less than him, but you never know what they're practicing, what they're running. It's a long practice, a short run, a long run. But it was great to see some of those teams that are usually down here. Maybe they're going to be a little bit more up here. And unfortunately, on the flip side, you have McLaren, who they even said they were not happy with how their testing was going. So they were fighting it out for 4th place in the constructors last season. And now people are predicting them to be 9th team, 8th team in the constructors.
Which would be interesting. It'd be really interesting because that was a heck of a battle last season. The 3rd and 4th.
It really was. It was a huge battle between those two teams. So I'm very excited. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and talk about Bahrain, but I'm very excited. Again, there's a lot of chatter about Mercedes, that maybe they didn't have the testing that they thought they would have. It wasn't as good as they thought it was going to be. But then I think I'm hearing that it's not their actual car just yet, that there might be some changes to their side pod. I don't know if that's true or not, but
that's interesting. I mean, how often, you've been watching it for a few years, how often do you see that where they don't actually test the full car during testing? That to me is a little dangerous to have that happen, or the majority of it, right? And to make it, that sounds like kind of a drastic change so close to the first.
I would think a side pod would be a huge change. Like, that would be a drastic change. They're all, tweaking things here and there, looking, how is the air flowing? What are our sensors telling us? Is stuff matching up to what we were testing, the data we were getting in our wind tunnels? But I think something like that would be huge. Now, Mercedes kind of does have a reputation for sandbagging. So not showing full out during testing. They keep, some of the things close to their vest, how good their car is or what their car can do. And they tend to downplay, the drivers tend to downplay, oh, I think we're okay. We'll see how it goes. It's very much downplaying. But so who knows? I feel like we never know until actual practice and qualifying week 1.
It seems to me kind of like any kind of preseason in most sports, preseason is not always a predictor, right? So testing is not always a complete predictor. You just never know. So
you never know. I think you're spot on. And especially with cars. I mean, last year we knew there was the porpoising effect, right? So they fixed that this year with the floors. But there were teams tweaking their cars, it seemed, all season, really. I mean, engines and all kinds of things power units were just completely going wrong. And it seemed like they were constantly updating and changing things. So yeah, I mean, we could, even with the excitement of Haas and Aston Martin and some of those teams during practice testing, come this week and the actual race, we could be right back in team order, right? Red Bull all the way down to Haas. I hope we don't see that, but it could be.
Well, I thought was helpful, and this is just me touting, our Instagram and all of our social stuff to follow. But one thing that I felt was helpful is when because you pretty much lead most of our social posting, is you were providing a lot of explanations of what was going on during the testing, like the green paint and the things that are happening. That's so helpful for people who are new to F1 like myself to understand what's going on. So
yeah,
as we're building up this community, so people listening out there that just ask us questions, because we will get out there and get the answers, because it's all about the more you know, right? It helps you understand it, and because that's what we're all about, right? The knowledge and the strategy and all of that. So that was so helpful for me, even being part of this, to learn from you as we're going along.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still learning things too, and how I might know what an aero rake is, but how are they taking that data? So an aero rake, just very quickly, because I just said it, is the big metal grids that were kind of hanging off, kind of hanging off the front and the sides of the cars. And it's sensors, and it's collecting data of how is that air flowing? How is that air flowing for the aerodynamics? And what they do is they take that data from the track, different scenarios, fast, slower, all of that, and they take that and compare it to the data that they have done already in the wind tunnels. So they're testing these cars as they're building them in their wind tunnels. And so let's compare is it acting like we thought it would on track? Is the air flowing the way we thought it would? Do we need to tweak something? So I think that's really important, because you may have been around for a long time and never seen the aero rake or the flow viz. Let's see where that green paint starts to, how does it form on the car? Where is it showing the air going? I think those things are really important. And again, we're all going to learn together, but I'll try to put that out there. We did have one question on our page after the Ferrari launch, and we'll get to launches in just a little bit, but asking what track were they on? And I was able to share with them that is Ferrari has their track, right? They have their track at their headquarters. And so they were able to take their car out on their own track and run it during the launch. So keep those questions coming. I'm happy to answer them. And like you said, we'll dig. If we don't know the answer, we'll dig for it.
Yeah, and we get enough questions coming in. We can each week, when we cover the race and do our report out, we could even add a segment in there too of just covering a technical item about racing.
That's a great idea,
because that's how we're going to keep building this kick-ass community, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So you mentioned the liveries and the launches, so that's a good little segue.
Ooh. Yeah. What did you think? Who was your favorite livery? Who?
It's hard to get away from the green, right? Because me and green, my favorite color. So I really enjoyed it. It's such a pretty car.
Yeah. Aston Martin, I think, did a good job with their car. To me, I think a lot of the cars were very similar, except similar but dark mode. Like, right? We saw
Yeah, it
a
was.
lot more of the carbon showing. Well, obviously Mercedes is basically all carbon, all black. Back to black is they're saying on that. But yeah, a lot more dark. So what did you think about, did you notice a difference, or were you kind of like, wow, these are all
No,
dark?
I think it would help is when they would show the before and afters because,
Hmm.
again, being still so new to it and everything. And when I got into it, was literally, binge watching Drive to Survive to get caught up on several seasons. So there was a lot of cars in my head. So seeing that was really helpful, and seeing kind of even the transition year over year. What I liked is when they show kind of the side and the top down view,
Hmm.
even though it's not the exact car. There was one that I thought was interesting. The logo of one of the sponsors from the side looks really cool, but from the top, it just looks a little wonky with the arrows pointing at each other.
Oh.
I was like, that's a little weird. Red Bull, I thought, did a cool job on how they've got theirs, and I forget who has Duracell as one of their sponsors, but the battery is.
William.
Yeah, it's got the batteries up at the top, like where the intake is behind the driver's
Yes.
side. I thought that looks really cool. It's just,
I think, yeah, that was the most genius.
yeah,
What a perfect spot for that sponsor
that,
placement.
yeah, it just looks like, oh, we just plug the battery in right here. I thought that was kind of cool. Like, so some of the sponsor placement I think is neat when they can really make it look like it was part of the car, the paint. It's just not just an applique that was planted on there.
Yeah.
I like that. Maybe that's the graphic person in me. That makes it, pretty neat.
Yeah.
And
I
and
think so.
it's because me, I'm still learning all the names. Who's the one that has the pink car in the every year?
Alpine?
Alpine, yeah, Alpine. So I think it's neat that they're starting with that for the first so many races, but they didn't exactly say how many. They kind of were. They said, I thought they were kind of loose about it, but it is definitely going to be 3. Okay.
Yep, it'll be the first 3 will be the pink, and then after that it will be the blue. Which I think I'm with you on that. I think that's really cool. They showed both of them because there are times during the season where they may a team may do a special livery, right? But they said, here they both are. This is, and we're running it this, and we're running it that. I'm excited that Red Bull, I think this is so cool because Red Bull's cars have not changed hardly at all, right? Their liveries have rarely changed, which I get it. You have a brand and you need to do all of that. But I pretty much cheered out loud when Christian Horner during their launch said, for the 3 US races, which by the way, the US has more races than any other country as of this year. For the 3 US races, they are going to have a contest for their liveries, and whichever wins, that's what's going on the car. So Miami, Austin, and Vegas will have a livery created by a fan or whoever wins their contest. And I think what a fun way for fans to get involved. People have a lot of opinions about liveries and what they should look like. Well, great. If you're that creative, go make a livery and enter it. I think the Miami livery contest is already open. So if you're listening and you're creative and you want to throw your hat in the ring for the Red Bull livery, get out there and do it. I think that's so fun to get the fans more involved.
Absolutely. I think we need to get involved because you're opinionated. So
I'm opinionated, yes, but I am not creative. Like, I think we know that.
no, but you could help out with, like, you like this color, that color, and I could create it. We could get a grid, option out there.
We could do that, actually. Might as well. Throw a head in there. If I had to design it, it would be little stick figures and like steering wheels.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting, and we talked about this, was the different way the launches happen. There's like a 15-minute, like, hey, check us out, and then like an hour and something long, get together. But literally, what came through is a comment you made yesterday. We were talking was the fans of Ferrari really showed. You could see that in theirs, right? Because they just all come together to see the whole country spirit in their launch, which was really it was fun and like warming to see. I really enjoyed that.
I think it was such a unique, I know some of the other launches, they had some fans there, but I think it was very controlled in a lot of ways. And a lot of times it's just the teams, their staff, right? The engineers, the, whoever works in the office, that's who it is. I loved that one Ferrari did it at their headquarters. They had their Tifosi. Like we all know, there is nothing like the Ferrari Tifosi out there. Um, they support Ferrari like no other. And to have them be the people in the stands, and there were people on a bridge and, around the facility also that didn't get in the stands. But those cheers when they turned around and they said, what was the host saying is like, did he say Forza? And then they all said Ferrari, and he said Charles, and they all went Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. I mean, that passion was just coming through the screen, and theirs was an hour long, but I sat through the whole thing. I thought it was so well done, compared to Red Bull's, which was an hour long and included a whole bunch of stuff nobody really cared about. But but you talked about
so corporate. They just seem so corporate-y versus like the fans. I like that because it's all about the fans. That's what gets people in to watch it. Without the fans, it's hard to have the sport, right? You need that to get the sponsors, to get it to make it happen. So that was I really liked it.
No, I think you're spot on. I think you saying Red Bull was corporate, that's exactly it. Because they were bringing out, athletes from other sports who, nobody. I'm a big Olympics person, so I knew who a lot of those athletes were. But for most people, it's like, get to the car. And the funny thing is their little brother, right, AlphaTauri, like their whole thing was a few minutes. It was all of a sudden drop, and there's Yuki, and like there's the car, and then that was it. I'm like, there's no words, like nobody's saying anything. So two completely different. Two completely different things. But you know what I was thinking? Speaking of sponsors, I am so proud of Haas. They are getting real sponsors. They just signed with Chipotle.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, they've been doing so good. And I think it's Travis Matthews. That's a brand. I go to the celebrity golf tournament in Tahoe every year, and they're always there handing out their hats and clothes. It's a whole lifestyle brand, and shirts and the whole 9 yards. So I'm just like, good for Haas. Good for them getting all these sponsors.
That is so awesome.
Love to see that. Love to see it. What else? Rookies.
Rookies, yes.
Let's talk about rookies. So last year we just had one rookie. Joe was the only rookie. So I think by default he won Rookie of the Year. Like he's the only one. But he did well. I think he had a great season. But this year we've got 3. So tell me who they are, Claire.
So you got, I'm going to say the name wrong. Is it Nick DeVries or DeVries?
Nick DeVries.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then you have Oscar Piastri.
Yep.
Piastri. And then Logan, is it Sargent, right?
Logan Sargent with Williams. Yep.
Yeah, Williams.
Yeah.
So and we get to see Nick on the track last season. He actually scored points, which was, from my understanding, is kind of like unheard of to do that on your first time out.
Absolutely. That was such a special weekend. I think the entire F1 community was rooting for him. When he stepped in, because Alex Albon had appendicitis, right? So all of a sudden he had to go have surgery. And at the last second, he steps in. Nick steps in for Williams. And the way he handled qualifying, it was like, are you kidding me? This guy just keeps getting better and better. And then in the race, he ran so well. And at the end of the race, I think he was driver of the day, if I'm not mistaken. And it just seemed like everybody was on this high, like just so excited for him to have done so well. He's like 27 or 28. So most of the drivers are younger. He's been around for a while. He's competed with a lot of these drivers. He just hasn't had his shot. in F1. And I think for sure, and maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, obviously that weekend just sealed his, signed his ticket to F1. And I
Yeah.
think for me, because of that race, I am really excited to see what he does this year. You
Yeah, and
never
he's
know.
got a few pairings too. So I know we're getting to that, but it was interesting to hear him talk about his plans and his goals going into that pairing onto the team. And even the team principal was saying that there's no lead driver quite identified, at least at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Even though one's a year into it, a little longer, is not a rookie, and the other is a rookie.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting pairing and potentially competition between the two of them.
And yeah, and I mean, we can kind of talk about these pairings because they are new, and we can talk more about the other pairings. But I think from the Drive to Survive, what could be interesting with this new pairing of Yuki and Nick is out. Like, this is his shot, right? He's 27, he's 28. This is his time. He's going to go out there and give it all he has, and he is not going to take a back seat to Yuki. I think he is going to go out there in his plan, which they all have the plan to go out and win, right? But I think he kind of set that tone. Like, I'm not coming in to just be the backup driver or number two driver. I'm coming in and I am going to beat him. I'm
Yeah,
going to beat Yuki.
it's a level of maturity almost too. I think I see it in him as he set himself up. He spoke as if he was as a leader, as
Yes.
someone who's like, I need to lead, I need to go in, I need to do what's right. I've got to do what's right for the team and for myself and for my career. And um, you know, it's just interesting, and it'll be interesting too, as you and I've talked about how Yugi is, and I know it's just angst and whatnot with the team while he's driving too, with the engineers and the team and whatnot. That's going to
Yeah.
have a lot of play into it, right? You've got to be able to communicate well and play well, and
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how it all plans out.
I think so too. And I think for Yuki, I think that he's very much aware that going into this year, he needs to start showing he has what it takes and that he can perform consistently.
Consistently.
So I think that's a hard. If I were a driver, I think that would be so hard knowing before the first race has begun, just that pressure is on me to perform and do my absolute best consistently. That's a lot of pressure. He's
Yes.
not guaranteed a seat next year. He could totally be out of F1. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. I think that's a pairing to watch for sure.
Totally. It'll be interesting how they play out because it's not that they're rivals, but they both have to compete and prove themselves as, new rookie and just coming out of being rookie and no guarantees. And this
Exactly.
kind of the maturity, I think the maturity level is going to really set it. And it's overall maturity, not just driver maturity. I think
Right.
it's quite the dynamics that's going to be there. But
I
then
I agree. I agree. And I'm sad for Yuki not having Pierre, but maybe he'll form a bond with Nick, but I think it might take a little while to get that going as they find their footing on
yeah.
that. Let's talk about Oscar Piastri over with McLaren and with Lando.
That's going to be interesting because Oscar, one of the way he moved last season was, a little interesting in
Yeah.
itself. And I just wonder what comes with that, right? Does that come with any kind of inflated, ego with that, or just is kind of some of that behind it, and how is it going to be on that team? And then with you had said, and I've read too about how the car is not performing as well as expected.
Yeah.
That could add to some struggles because that reminds me of a couple of seasons ago when Danny moved over and
Yeah.
then started immediately having car issues, right? So it doesn't matter how great of a driver you are if the car is not performing.
That's
And
right.
there's a lot of promise that we talked about last season, how this is a wasted resource, and he's a talent that hasn't been given his shot yet in F1, and we need to give it to him. And if the car is already not performing well,
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Orlando and that whole dynamic too. That's going to be that's going to be. I think that could be a challenge. And are they the? No, they're not the two. It's the other pairing I'm going to talk about that's already got a rivalry against themselves. But is there
Oh,
any kind of anything between Oscar and Lando that I?
no,
No.
nothing that I've heard. I think that I don't know if I'm sure they have raced against each other at some point,
Yeah.
in their lives. I think what's cool with Oscar is he really does come with like the resume, right? Like he's
Oh
done
yeah.
well in F2. And so it's so hard to say. Like, I really am excited to watch Nick based on his race last year. But Oscar comes in with this pedigree that, you just expect him to come in and do really, really well. Like you said, unfortunately, we don't know how McLaren's car is going to perform. So, yes, he secured himself a seat in F1, but it may not have been the best year to be with McLaren. So we'll see how that plays out. I think Lando has been, the top driver, obviously last year over Daniel Ricciardo, but it's going to be interesting. I think that team might let them kind of fight a little bit for, I don't know if they have their order. Lando's 1, year 2, or we're going to let you fight it out and see who does better. But I think that's going to be really interesting. And if the car's not performing well, that's obviously going to frustrate the drivers. And so how might that affect their relationship, when they're both trying to get points out of a car that may or may not be performing.
Right. And then I can't recall if we know how long of a contract Oscar signed too. So is he stuck for a long period of time? So that would be interesting too, to be such a promising talent if you're stuck in a bad situation. And then Nick, I am excited about Nick. I mean, he kind of reminds me a little bit. Back to Nick. I'm really excited to see how that's going to go. I just keep going back to that one. But again, then Logan, I don't know a lot about Logan, so I'm gonna have to learn to him. I don't know much about him. He's kind of like I don't know if he's a dark horse, just a quiet little mouse, or what's up with him.
I know. I really don't either. Obviously, I know he's from the U.S., so people are very, very excited to finally again have a U.S. driver in F1. And there's a lot of hope and a lot of hype that really the sport's growing so much here in the U.S. And now we have this U.S. driver, so maybe it will continue to elevate the sport in the U.S. But I don't know a ton about him either. And honestly, maybe like you just said, he's quiet as a mouse. I haven't been that motivated to go look up stuff about him either. So maybe I should do that, but it's just like, cool, Logan Sargent. I do think that him and Alex Albon for Williams will be a good pairing. I think Alex just strikes me as somebody who's pretty easygoing. He's easy to get along with. He's funny. And so even if Logan, maybe he is quiet, like we were saying at the beginning of this, I'm a little bit more quiet and introverted. You're, a little bit more out there and outgoing. And so maybe they're the same. Who knows? I could totally be making that up. Logan could be like the most outgoing person in the world. We just haven't seen it yet. But maybe they would be a good pair. I just feel like they're going to fit together really well. Like it'll just be a good.
It'll be interesting
for them.
Well,
yeah. So
I think that puts us into the other pairing. So
yes, I know. I have to think about this. So what do we have? Alpine, totally French team, right? They had Pierre come over and they've had Esteban there. So a French-based team now with 2 French drivers who have a history of not really enjoying each other's company. So we'll see. I hope that they end up good friends. So far, they seem to be putting on a good show. They went to a basketball game with Charles Leclerc in the off season, and I think it seems like they're hanging out a little bit here and there. But what I thought was kind of interesting is like a week or so ago, they didn't have any pictures of them together except for when Pierre signed or said that he was going to Alpine. And I think that's kind of weird. I might be trying to stir the pot, but I just think that's I think that's a little odd, and it makes me wonder: are things as calm and everybody's good as they're saying?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't think that's the most volatile pairing, though.
No,
No.
no. I think Haas. So we've got Nico Hulkenberg, and then Kevin Magnussen obviously was with them last
Yeah.
year and the years prior.
I think
That one,
that's going to be, yeah. I think that's going to be our most volatile pairing. Because
yeah.
they clearly, I don't know what it is. I don't know their background, but they clearly do not have there's no love lost between the two of them.
No, in the past they have not. I mean, again, you have two drivers who've been around for quite a while, so they've raced against each other a lot. Both left F1 because they didn't have a seat, right? And now they're both back. Kevin came back last year, and then they're bringing Nico back this year. So again, I think we're talking about drivers who have a lot to prove, right? Like same with Yuki and Nick. You have a lot to prove. Nico, especially, you've been brought back. You've been out of the sport for, a couple years at least. And now you guys have to be together. But then again, there's no love lost. I mean, I think that video of Kevin giving an interview back in the day and Nico coming up and, saying whatever it was, once again, you prove you're the, I don't even remember what he says, not the least nicest, or what does he say? Something, he gives him a little dig. And yeah,
well, there's
Kevin fires back.
They dig each other in not so nice terms at the end of this year's Drive to Survive. I won't spoil it for anyone, but yeah, it's not really nice. So yeah.
Well, and okay, but they're also a team claiming that they're playing nice, right? That everything it's water under the bridge and everything's good.
And I wonder too, because Morganson, he's a dad, and it just sometimes that changes people too. So it'll I don't know. It's going to be.
He says that it has. He says that it has changed him. He is a hothead, but he's calmed down. And if you watch, previous seasons, not necessarily even of Drive to Survive, but you just know what was going on in the paddock that last year with him and Roman and Haas and Gunter. That's he's not going to put up with any of his drivers' baloney, right? Like he is going to set, and I adore Gunter immensely. He's amazing, but he's not going to put up with that. And I don't think the owner, Gene Haas, will either. So hopefully, if there is bad blood there, they are going to keep that professional and do what they have to do. I would hate to see them start, battling each other on the track and causing issues. And
they've got in addition to the individual points, there's team points, right? You've got to work it out for the team. So
and the team, those team points where you end up in the constructors can mean a difference of millions of dollars. So you need to be scoring points, not taking your teammate out or, preventing. You both need to be scoring points. So the last new pairing we have is at Aston Martin, and you have Lance Stroll and you have Fernando Alonso. This is the one I think I'm most interested to see, because we know that Fernando he's an aggressive driver. He's a very good driver. And he wants to get out there and win. Mm-hmm. And Lance, I think, is a bit of a dangerous driver, although this year they have bigger side mirrors. But I think that he's a bit of a dangerous driver in some aspects. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how that pairing works. Not only because I think Fernando can be up there, especially if that car is as good as it was looking in practice, but it could really maybe show that Lance might not be, somebody that maybe he needs to give up a seat. I don't know. I think that's just my personal opinion. I think Lance Stroll seems like a very nice person, especially as a billionaire son. He seems like he's very grounded and chill. But as far as drivers go, I don't think he's one of the best. And that could be an interesting pairing. Maybe he'll learn a lot from Fernando.
Maybe it gives him that opportunity. I mean, hopefully it takes up on that opportunity, right? But it's interesting. Fernando just talked about, like, he's the bad guy of the story always, and the racer's bad guy. So it'll be interesting. So,
Yeah.
it brings up like race round one's coming up. So I'm
I can't
excited.
wait. I am so excited. This week, I almost bounced out of bed. Not only because I knew we were going to do our podcast today, and I was so excited to finally get this going. We've been planning this for months, right? And talking about it, and just finally getting going. And again, if you've stuck with us this long and you're listening, this is our very first podcast ever. We're going to keep getting better. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about. We have a lot of improvements that we want to do. So thank you for sticking with us. But I was just so excited that it's race week. I cannot wait for Friday to get up and watch practice and the second practice and then qualifying, because now it's time to put your money where your mouth is, right? Like, we've seen your launches, we've seen your testing. Now it's time to go. It's go time. You have got to get out there. And I think the anticipation of who's going to place where, is Red Bull really going to knock it out of the park? Is Ferrari going to be up there? Is Haas going to move up and, get double points? I think it's just that anticipation and the not knowing and the excitement of anything is possible, right? Everybody's at 0
Everybody
points.
Yeah. It's an even playing field. Yeah. And I'm excited for me because it'll be the first season that I've watched it live, and not just at the end, and get to experience it all live, and with you live, which is going to be so cool. And so
Yes.
and we're just counting down to Barcelona.
Yes. Oh, that's going to be here before we know it too. And at that point, I don't even know how many races we'll be in, but I don't know. I'm so excited for all of it. And I think especially for She Loves the Grid, our podcasts are going to be coming out every Tuesday is what we're shooting for. And we're going to talk about the race, and we're going to talk about, the qualifying, and we're going to talk about anything that happened off the track or, in the paddock or what have you. But also even our social media stuff. There's going to be so much that we can put out there, so much content about what's happening that week, or again, educating people. So I'm just excited to really, just like the drivers probably this week, like, let's get going. Let's get
Be
excited.
excited. That's got to be one thing for them. They've got to be so excited to get that first race out of the way, first get there, and just get it done and get it over with, and go. Because I would imagine the first race, the car's performance is, definitely different from testing, and then go. I'm really hoping that we get a good race and they all go. We don't have any retires, and, no crashes. Just we could just get all 20 across the checkered flag. It'd be really great to see that.
I think that's amazing. Very, very good point. I agree with you 1,000,000%. I'd hate to see anybody on that first race drop out, whether engine or crash or what have you. Let's have a good, clean race. Everybody finishes.
That'd be awesome.
Get that going.
This is exciting. We did it. We made it all the way through.
We did it. I love it. Well, yeah. So tune in next Tuesday and we'll go over everything about Bahrain.
And get ready for the round two. So let's off to round one.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. So yeah. If you're connecting with us on social media, let us know where you're watching from this week. And if you are actually going to any of these races, hashtag us. She Loves the Grid. Hashtag She Loves the Grid. We want to see who's going. If you're going to Barcelona, send us a message. We'd love to try to meet up with people if we can. But if you're going to any of the races, hashtag us. She Loves the Grid. We want to see your experience. We want to know what you were able to see.
And if you've got questions, let us know. We'll get answers out to you, because we're all can learn together. If Dianne doesn't know it, we'll find them. But she definitely knows a lot. She's our resident F1 expert as we get along here. All right. Well, thank you all. This was great.
Yay. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. To stay up to date with She Loves the Grid and get all the behind-the-scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram @She Loves the Grid and on Facebook at facebook.com/She Loves the Grid. Thank you for joining us for the ride this week.